Because can you explain to me why the only job that was available was a job for me to become a groundbreaker, showing young people how not to get HIV? Like, why would I? Could I have gotten this lesson 5, 10 years before, so maybe my parents might still be alive? This is also the time where, for me, the the want or the need to start an organization came from. I looked and worked for this massive movement, which was Love Life, and I thought, surely there are many other young people in a similar position to the position I'm in. At that time, I did not know how big the problem was, to be honest. Hello, everybody, and welcome to my very first episode of showing you and taking you on a journey of the past 20 years. Sure, feels like a lifetime ago, but I'd like to title this session The Audacity of 18. There's something about being young and naive and thinking that anything is possible at that age and not understanding how hard it's about to be. Because you know how you are when you're a teenager, right? Everything just seems and looks easy, but it wasn't. But the fact that I had productive nativity, I was naive and yet I got things moving, was great. And so let me take you back to what I title The Audacity of 18. I often like to say that this purpose found me. While many people go around looking for their purpose, looking for what their passions are in life, discovering them, I strongly believe mine found me. It located me. I wasn't ready for it. And I think most of the time, even when we are looking for our purpose and our passion, we're not ready when we finally discover it. We're not ready to kind of tap into it. But here I was, 18, walking into the doors of Love Life for the very first time. The year was 2002. I had just matriculated. But I want to take you back 5 years before that. I'd lost my mom already. And at the time, I didn't know, from what and what had happened. 1 minute she was here and the next minute she was gone. And I had recently lost my dad. And having these two pillars, one moment here and within a matter of years no longer there, was obviously, for a teenage girl and her older brother, was a huge traumatic experience. And to think that that wasn't enough, what followed on after that, the stigmatization that we endured, the hurt and the pain, the isolation that we felt was just immeasurable. My brother and I lived a very tough life after my dad died. You know, the very family you think would come through for you, to protect you, to guide you, to be there with you when you are navigating various milestones in your life, they were not there. And it was left to my brother and I to make sure that we survived, that I completed Matric, that I didn't fall pregnant, and that we somehow achieved the dreams that we had set out to achieve. Now, you're two young Black orphans from a child-headed household and you are stressed about where your next meal is going to come from. And even though you're in school, you are trying to do really well with your studies and your academics, nothing is going to get you into the doors of the University of Cape Town because you just don't have the money. My brother couldn't even be my surety because he had nothing. Like I told you, our biggest stress was what we're going to eat every evening. And so I miraculously passed Matric, and I often say miraculously because I don't recall my Matric exams. I don't recall like actively studying. I don't recall that period. I remember showing up. I remember writing my name. We were still from the era of making a margin on the right-hand side of the piece of paper. Do they still do that? Or was that automatic on these papers these days? I don't know. But we had to physically draw that line in. I remember that. I remember writing my name, my student number. But I passed. And you know what? I passed quite well too. But that wasn't good enough. Not because my results weren't good enough, but because my socioeconomic situation at the time just didn't allow me to go into the school of choice. And that was the first injustice after my parents died that I felt. And of course, the biggest one being that my brother and I had lost both our parents to AIDS, and we were now a child-headed household. And so it felt like one injustice after another that I was just like, okay, girl up, Sibu. Get yourself a job. Help your brother. Put food on the table. That was the mission, nothing else. And, your passion, your purpose will do funny things. It will land you up in situations where you're like, that's gotta be God. like, because can you explain to me why the only job that was available was a job for me to become a groundbreaker, showing young people how not to get HIV? Like, why would I? Could I have gotten this lesson 5-10 years before, so maybe my parents might still be alive? I don't know, but it is what it is. My very first job as an 18-year-old was at LoveLife, the biggest HIV prevention campaign in the world at the time. I was the first motivational groundbreaker in the streets of Kwalanga in Cape Town, the first cohort in 2002. I look back now and I'm extremely proud of that moment. But in the moment, I thought, what is this? But you know what? I wasn't bothered because I was going to be getting 800 Rand a month as a stipend. Chankura. Anything to help my brother put food on the table. And just when you think you're taking a job for the sake of taking a job, but it's actually one of the building blocks and one of the stepping stones to you discovering your fire. I remember walking into LoveLife and thinking, okay, this is just a job. It's a joke. It's on me that it's about HIV and I've just lost my parents to AIDS. But here we are. I'm going to make the most of this and I am going to earn my 800 Rand. I'm a hard worker. I can do this. The fact that this hits so close to home was not something I thought I could use as a power tool for me. I just thought, just get the job done, right? This is also the time where, for me, the want or the need to start an organization came from. I looked and worked for this massive movement, which was LoveLife, and I thought, surely there are many other young people in a similar position to the position I'm in. At that time, I did not know how big the problem was, to be honest. I didn't know at the time that there were over 2 million AIDS orphans in sub-Saharan Africa. I didn't know, but I was one of them. And I didn't, I knew that they were out there and they needed, for a lack of a better word, to be saved. I knew that it almost felt like it weighed heavily on me to make sure that it happened. And I was determined. Okay, I'm going to get it done. But I knew that my time at LoveLife was equally important so that I could learn what I needed to learn. And I'm glad I gave my time to LoveLife. I gave LoveLife a good couple of years in the beginning. And they poured into me in ways that I can't even explain. The people who came into my life in that moment, in those early days, were absolutely incredible. I call them my angels. They were the ones who reminded me who I am. They poured into me, and they taught me how to own my story. Instead of me using it as a crutch, but rather use it as like some powerful tool that I could use to shape the narrative of AIDS orphans around the world. I often say to people, I'm actually shy. So if someone had said to me back then that this is what I'd be doing today, I would have laughed in their faces because what? No. But today I speak on global stages, but it started on the stages of classrooms in front of 13, 14, 15-year-old students. And I was showing them, helping them make informed decisions about the daily lifestyle navigation that they had to make in their lives to make sure that they don't succumb to HIV or they don't contract HIV and succumb to AIDS. And it's a pity we can't go back and measure that. It's a pity we can't go back and measure how many young people I impacted. But I know that through the work I did at LoveLife, which was in the very early days of the prevention, but right in the middle of the crisis, of the AIDS crisis, the work that we did back then was absolutely incredibly important. And this is where I learned that, you know, when you're young, you just believe everything is possible. I mean, my twin toddlers think they can fly. Like, it's just, there's something about being young and naive and just knowing that everything is possible. And that's what I believed then. That's what I knew. And every single thing and every single move that I made in the space at the time was really heavily guided by that. Oh, but there were moments of doubt. There were moments I would have to share a stage with Uzola 7, who was massive at the time. And I would have moments of self-doubt. I, at some point at LoveLife, headed up what we called the Celebrate Life program, which was celebrities joining hands with the work that we're doing around HIV prevention at major concerts around the country. And I would come in for the education part of the entertainment. It wasn't easy, but stepping onto those stages from classrooms where there were only 30 or 40 youngsters in the class to big stages like that. Now, you're stepping on big stages with the likes of the double HPs, the Zola 7s, the Loiso Balas, the TKZs. And I had to come in and do my bit. And working with all of these people from various stages really kind of built my initial days of understanding that the work I'm going to do, the purpose I'm going to follow, the passion I'm going to push is going to require a face for all audiences. And that really built my initial time understanding what this looks like and what my responsibility is going to have to be. Those early days of audacity, of being naive, really helped. There's something about growing older. And I mean, with all the people that I coach today who are a little bit older, they've got so many reservations because life has happened and you just feel like, oh, that can never be a possibility. Oh, that can never work because life has happened, right? And so that's fair. But the beauty about starting young, so if you're young and you kind of feel like this is your space, or any other space for that matter, there is power in starting younger, right? Because you just feel like anything is possible. However, even though I started young, there are many more lessons I'm going to share on the series about different types of lessons that I've learned, that it doesn't matter where you find yourself right now starting in your journey, that with all these lessons packed together, you're going to realize you can start at any point. It all requires you showing up. Because, by the way, I still showed up at 18. I had to show up at 18. I had to show up with nothing. And that's the beauty about it, right? It also reminds you that you could be 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 with nothing, and you can still start in the space. And so that's the lesson I'd like you to walk away with from today's conversation. Is that anything is possible, right? You can start at any point. You can do what you want at any point. Your passion is going to push you into places and spaces you didn't think were even a possibility. Yours is to show up. Yours is to be audacious. Yours is to allow your passion to pull you and push you into those spaces. It still requires a lot of showing up from you. And I believe that the fact that you're even watching this video is because something has pushed you into believing that you've got some passions and purpose that you need to follow through on. And I am hopeful that as you listen to the rest of the series, you are going to find the moment, your why, and what pushed you into doing what you want to do, or continue to maintain the energy that you need to continue doing what you're doing. So, from me, Sibulele Sipata Nomganga, the NGO expert and NGO queen. Cheers.